Hello, welcome maths fans. Here we go on a Monday morning, raring to go with fractions 1. So this morning we're focusing on the basics of fractions. So you may find that you know quite a bit about this, but don't switch off, because with this grounding on these fractions is really important to get to grips with, because a lot of people fall down on fractions because they haven't got this basic concept to start off with. So although you've probably seen it before, again, it's going to be really good to go over this basic concept, and from this we'll build on this all week, and so that we are proficient in all maths fraction skills by the end of the week. Okay, and fractions probably won't be as frightening as they used to be. So without further ado, today's tune, here we go. And that was Eva Cassidy, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and of course made famous by which film? Which film? You can type that in at your leisure to see who knows what film Somewhere Over the Rainbow is taken from. Okay, and I'll reveal answers later on. So back to the podcast for this morning. Okay, so looking at fractions, we are going to cover the basics. So just take a look at that first question, and we'll come back to that in a second. Have a think about, it's not a question, just have a look at that Okay, back to it then. So we've got a diagram there which is split into sections. So first of all, I want you to think about the whole of this diagram, the whole space of this diagram. Okay, so consider the whole. We were starting off with the whole. That's the whole part. Okay, forget the pinky bits. So what fractions are, it's the number of parts out of a whole. And whole means the whole shape, the whole amount, the whole whatever you're talking about, the whole chocolate bar, the whole packet of cereal, the whole thing at the start. How much have you got at the start? How much is available? And that's what the whole is. So everything's referring to a section out of that part. Okay, so whole, the whole thing, the whole shape. And then we can see that we've split this shape into sections. Okay. So the first thing to do when we're looking at fractions is to see how many sections we have all together. How many splits are there? How many areas are there within that shape? So looking at this then, we've got a rectangle, and altogether we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 parts altogether. So when we're talking about fractions, I'm going to discuss the lowest number first. When I mean lowest number, the lower number of the fraction. So we've got the line, and this lower number, that is the number of parts the whole has been split up into. Okay, and that's referred to as a denominator. So that's just the name, it's just a fancy name for the number of parts that the whole shape has been split into. So looking at this then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's out of 8. So that's the denominator. That's always the same. The number at the bottom, called the denominator, is the number of parts that the shape has been split up into. And then we look at the numerator. So the numerator, the top number, is the number of parts that we are going to use, that we're going to take, that we're coloured in, that are not coloured in, the parts that we're talking about in that in that hole. So imagine that this is actually a chocolate bar. Okay, and in that chocolate bar, there's 8 pieces. So the fraction, the parts that we're going to eat and munch away, is these 2, which I've highlighted. So we're gonna split this shape up into 8, and we're going 8 parts, and we're going to munch on 2 parts of the shape of the chocolate bar. So we've got 2 out of a total of 8, and that's how it works. Now, a lot of people don't get that first stage of fractions, and it just messes everyone. I don't get fractions. How many times do I hear that? I don't get fractions from parents as well as pupils. I never understood fractions. So this first bit is really, really important to get your head around what this number represents, what this number represents. Now, one thing I will say, you hear a lot of people talking about fractions and saying 2/8. Now, that strictly isn't incorrect, but it doesn't describe what's going on. So a real good tip is, let me write this fraction down here a little bit, 2/8. So the real top tip from me is, whenever we describe these, forget the over. Don't use over. Always use out of, the phrase out of. And that's what this line means, out of. Because out of, unlike over, explains what's going on. 2/8. So try and use that all the time. Try and get your head around that. Over is not as good as out of. Don't think you'll get it wrong, but it's not the right terminology. So get used to that out of. That's my biggest tip of this morning. Use the phrase out of. Okay. And we're going to go back to that in a second, but let's have a look at the yummy pizza in a similar way. So I'm coming along. I like pizza. I'm going to eat that. I'm going to eat that. Oh, I'm going to eat that as well. Oh, lovely. So I want you to type in. Now, use the hash key. I don't know if it's called hash key. No, it's not hash key, is it? Okay, I can't remember what the slanty line is, but use that slanty line there instead of an out of, because that's a computer way of doing a fraction. Okay, so that we can type it on a normal keyboard. Okay, what I want you to do, simple task, is type in your answer to what fraction I'm scoffing on this pizza. Okay, type that in now as you're ready. And use that key for the out of bit instead of that, because it makes it easier. Okay, so answers are coming in now. Thank you, folks. So while we're doing this, a few good mornings. Okay, so good morning to Dylan. Nice to see you again here this morning. Borodar Dylan. Borodar Lydia Monks, 2 Lydias again. Well done, guys. Lydia Monks, Lydia Ramsey, Rumsey, not Ramsey, Rumsey. So nice to see you two to get. Alfie, well done, man. Coming here, meeting up again. And a big welcome to Georgia this morning. Okay, so I hope you're well, Georgia, mate. Nice to see you this morning. Fantastic stuff. Okay, so all correct there. As I said, you've probably seen this before, but it's really important that we get these basics this morning. So 3/8. Now, we only use that out of as a shortcut on a keyboard. We would never write that in maths terms. If we've got a pen, okay, we've got to write it properly. It's all right for a keyboard only, but that's the way to do it if we're writing in GCSEs, because you're running a risk of an examiner saying, oh, that's not out of, I'm not marking that right. So always write it like that with pen. Okay, and on a calculator as well. But if you can't, for speed on a calculator, it makes sense to do it like that. On Word, you could use equation editor. So insert and then choose equation editor, and you can do all sorts of fancy things. But it takes ages, and it's okay. It's okay to write out of like that. For speed, if you're typing and using a computer. If you're writing by hand, always write it correctly. That's brilliant. Right, now I said we go back to this one now for a second. All right, Now, I want you, I haven't got any Tipp-Ex, but I want you to imagine Tipp-Exing this line out, getting rid of that line there. Okay, so try and ignore the pizza question a second. We're going back to this one now. Let's see. I've got some paper to cover that up. I don't want you to be distracted by that. Okay, that's it. Right, go back to the beginning. There we go. So this time, I want you to imagine this line here. This middle line's gone. Ignore that. Ignore that middle line. So if I was drawing this out now, and I'm doing it in freehand, so it's not perfect, but it's the right idea. Ignore that. Okay, freehand. My shape now looks like this. Okay. I want you to type in the fraction that we've got now. Exactly the same shape, exactly the same amount, but what's the fraction? Type it in now. Okay, we've got 8 viewers this morning. That's pretty good going. Well done, whoever's that extra person. Make yourself known so I can wish you a good morning. Okay, answers coming in. Thank you very much. Quarter, 1 out of 4. 1 out of 4. Brilliant. So this and this are the same thing, and we said that this is 2/8. So the thing is that 2/8 is exactly the same as 1/4. And that brings me to the next part of this fraction. You can have the same amount of a fraction, but using different numbers. Because it depends on how we split things. And if we split things in a certain way that if we take 2 or 3 of an amount, we create another split. Okay, maybe we split it into bigger amounts. So these values here are exactly the same amount. And that is confusing at first. But when you see a diagram like this, you can clearly see that it's the same diagram. Okay, so when we have two fractions that are the same value, different numbers, different numerator, different denominator, different numerator, different denominator, but they're the same value, we say that they are equivalent. Now that makes sense, but in maths we like to use one word for description only. So equivalent is the word that you need to be using. Not equals, this equals that fraction, equivalent fractions. Okay. As time goes on, I think more and more the vocabulary we use is more and more important. So try and stick to the right one. Brilliant. Right, let's jump now. A few minutes left. We're going to jump into this question here. We're not doing all of them, but just a quick idea of what our fractions are. So little pen to shade things up. So jump to this one. Notice the out of number first. It's always the number of shapes within a shape, the splits. Okay, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that explains that denominator number, the lower number denominator. Okay, and the top number is the number of parts that we want. Okay, another good word to use is parts, not splits. That's not very good. So the parts of a whole, parts of a whole. So let's, not doing all of them, but we've done the pizza one, haven't we? We've actually done that. So 2/5, we'll do that. So all I'm shading in is 2 parts out of 5. When I'm teaching, I'll often say, right, what's the number of parts not shaded? That'd be 3 parts out of 5. And 2 parts and 3 parts makes 5 parts out of 5. Brilliant. All good? Fantastic. So let's go on to this B part here. Now this is for tomorrow. We're doing equivalent fractions tomorrow, but I'll just give you an idea of what tomorrow is about and working on these equivalent fractions. So when we say simplify these fractions, what that means is that if we've got a fraction such as 2/8, we try and make the numbers as small as we can, but keeping the fractions the same value, keeping the fractions equivalent. So 2/8 can be 1/4. And notice the connection here is that we've halved both. We've got 2, halved divided by 2, same thing. We've halved both of their numbers. Now the key here is that just like equations, if we're going to change this fraction, we can multiply as well, but it's the same function on both of those. If you do a divide by 2 for the numerator and a times by 3 on the denominator, that's not allowed. You've got to do the same thing to both. And if you do, that's allowed. Now, a lot of debate about whether we can do this in one go or several goes. Okay, to me, it doesn't matter if we take as many as we like, as long as we get to the answer at the end, the correct answer at the end. So what we're going to do for this B part is think about dividing by 2. And then we can look at other equivalent fractions while we're at it. So 12/36. Okay. Remember, we've got to do the same thing to both numbers, otherwise it's not going to be an equivalent fraction. It doesn't work. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 6 divided by 36 is 18. Oh, no, sorry. Let's do that again. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 36 divided by 2 is 18. There we go. These are just for me, so I know I'm doing the same thing. Now, what do we notice? Actually, we can do that again, because these are both even numbers, so 2 will go into it. So 6 divided by 2 is going to be 3, and 18 divided by 2 is going to be 9. 3 out of 9. So it looks like that's as far as you can go. But if we look at these numbers carefully again, 3 will divide both of those. So next we need to do the same thing but divide by 3. Okay? 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Again, I'm dividing by the same number. And we get to a stage at the end where nothing else will go into those. Well, 1 will, but nothing else will make a difference. So that's as far as we go. And that means we've simplified it. Sometimes you hear simplify to the lowest term. That's the phrase used. Now, one last thing. Can I go from there to there in one hit? Okay, so this is an answer to you. My question is, what do I need to divide the numerator and the denominator, one number that will take us from there to there in one go? And answers coming in. Well, hey. Good morning to Debs Fullard this morning. Nice to see you. Okay. And welcome, Borodar. Okay, answers coming in. That's brilliant. Okay, well done. So it's divided by 12. 12 divided by 12 is 1. 36 divided by 12 is 3. Brilliant. So, which is better, doing it this way or doing it this way? Now, when I was at school, you had to do it this way. You had no choice. You still got it right if you did it that way, but it was frowned upon. And the advantages of doing it this way, getting the highest number that will go into both numbers first time round, which is called the highest common factor, by the way, is short, quick, and efficient. But if the numbers are horrible here, doing it this way in a number of steps is also advantageous, because you just make the numbers easier to deal with each time. And if you haven't got a calculator, it makes sense as well. Just to break, I mean, going from there to there is easy. It's one step where you might not have noticed that 12 go into each number. And then you've got, and also from there, you might want to say, right, well, I won't halve again, but I've noticed that 6 goes into there. So you could do 2 steps. So it doesn't matter. As long as you reach this point here without making a mistake, to me, that's the most important part. Okay, other teachers may disagree, but that is, to me, either way is great, as long as you get to this simplified term at the end of the line. Okay, we're going to do a little bit more practice on this tomorrow. That's the main idea of tomorrow. And then Thursday, Friday, it'll be about addition, multiplying, division, and take away. Okay, we'll do. So going through the week, Monday is what we've done today. Basics. Tuesday is going to be equivalent fractions. Wednesday, I'm going to be in school. That's the day off for this week. Thursday is going to be multiplying and dividing fractions. And Friday is going to be addition and subtraction. Okay, folks, so that's it today. It was meant to be a shorter one because I've got a departmental meeting next, but actually it's turned out really well at 25 minutes. That's about right for these short sessions. Keep coming, keep viewing. Okay, let's see if we can get over the 10 mark. I know people are watching me later on in the day, so it'd be nice to get over 10 on the live part. So pass on the word. Live maths is where it's at.